How come America is the richest country in the world, yet the majority of Americans are not rich? A. Income inequality. Wealth concentration. A small percentage of the population, often referred to as the 1%, holds a significant share of the nation's wealth. This concentration can lead to disparities in opportunities, access to resources, and political influence. D. Debatable example. The debate over the influence of wealth in politics is ongoing. Critics argue that it allows the wealthy to shape policies that favor their interests, while proponents contend that political contributions are a form of free speech.
Wealth concentration. 1. Opportunities disparities. The concentration of wealth among a small percentage of the population can result in disparities in opportunities. Individuals from affluent backgrounds often have access to better educational resources, networking opportunities, and the ability to pursue entrepreneurial ventures, creating a cycle of advantage. 2. Access to resources. Wealth concentration impacts access to crucial resources such as healthcare, housing, and capital for starting businesses. Those with significant wealth may have access to exclusive services and investment opportunities, while others face barriers to essential resources. 3. Political influence. The concentration of wealth often translates into concentrated political influence. Wealthy individuals and corporations can engage in lobbying, campaign financing, and other political activities, shaping policies that align with their interests. This influence extends beyond economic matters to social and environmental policies.
Debatable example. The influence of wealth in politics. 4. Critics' perspective. Critics argue that the influence of wealth in politics undermines the principles of democracy. They contend that when a small segment of the population can disproportionately shape policies, it can lead to policies that favor the affluent at the expense of the broader population. This raises concerns about democratic representation and fairness. 5. Proponents' perspective. Proponents of wealth influence in politics often argue that political contributions are a form of free speech protected by the First Amendment. They contend that individuals and organizations, irrespective of their wealth, have the right to express their political views and support candidates or causes that align with their beliefs. They emphasize the importance of protecting individual freedoms. 6. Impact on policy agenda. The ongoing debate also centers on the impact of wealthy individuals and corporations on the policy agenda. Critics question whether policies are driven by the needs of the majority or by the interests of those with significant financial contributions. Proponents argue that political contributions play a legitimate role in shaping policy discussions and priorities. 7. Potential reforms. Within the debate, discussions about potential reforms arise. Critics often advocate for campaign finance reforms, stricter lobbying regulations, and measures to increase transparency. Proponents may argue for protecting free speech rights while acknowledging the need for some regulation to ensure fair and transparent political processes. 8. Global perspectives. The debate over wealth influence in politics extends globally. Countries worldwide grapple with finding the right balance between free expression of political views and preventing the distortion of democratic processes due to unequal financial influence. In examining this debatable example, it becomes clear that the relationship between wealth and political influence is complex, touching on foundational principles of democracy, individual rights, and the overall functioning of political systems. Addressing these challenges requires nuanced discussions and potential reforms to strike a balance between protecting democratic values and ensuring fair representation for all citizens.
B. Cost of living variation. Regional disparities. The cost of living varies widely across different regions. In metropolitan areas, housing, transportation, and other expenses can be considerably higher than in rural areas, impacting the perceived affordability of a comfortable lifestyle. D. Debatable example. The impact of gentrification in urban areas is a subject of debate. While it may lead to economic growth, it can also displace lower-income residents, contributing to social and economic inequality.
Cost of living variation. 1. Urban-rural disparities. The variation in the cost of living between urban and rural areas goes beyond housing and includes transportation, healthcare, and even food costs. This disparity can influence individuals' decisions about where to live, work, and raise a family. 2. Affordability challenges. In metropolitan areas, the high cost of housing and other living expenses can create challenges for residents, particularly those with lower incomes. The perception of what constitutes an affordable and comfortable lifestyle may differ significantly between regions. 3. Economic opportunities. Cost of living differences can influence economic opportunities. Individuals may choose to live in high-cost areas for better job prospects, but this decision comes with trade-offs related to affordability and quality of life.
Debatable example. The impact of gentrification. 4. Economic growth versus displacement. The debate over gentrification centers on the trade-off between economic growth and the potential displacement of lower-income residents. Proponents argue that gentrification brings economic revitalization, improved infrastructure, and increased property values. Critics, however, point to the negative social and economic consequences for existing communities. 5. Affordable housing shortages. Gentrification often leads to a reduction in affordable housing options, making it difficult for lower-income residents to remain in their neighborhoods. This raises questions about the role of local governments and developers in ensuring a balanced approach that includes affordable housing initiatives. 6. Cultural and social shifts. Gentrification can result in cultural and social shifts within communities. Existing residents may feel a sense of loss as their neighborhood undergoes transformation, impacting the fabric of local communities and potentially leading to social tension. 7. Equity and inclusion. The debate extends to questions of equity and inclusion. How can urban development strategies balance the need for economic growth with the imperative to ensure that the benefits are shared by all residents, preventing the marginalization of vulnerable populations? 8. Policy approaches. Within the gentrification debate, discussions about policy approaches emerge. Should policies prioritize the protection of existing residents through measures like rent control? Or should the focus be on creating economic opportunities for all? Recognizing that urban landscapes inevitably evolve. 9. Sustainability and livability. Gentrification discussions also touch on the long-term sustainability and livability of urban areas. How can cities grow and evolve without excluding or displacing certain populations, ensuring that development is sustainable and enhances overall quality of life? 10. Global urbanization trends. The impact of gentrification is not confined to specific cities or regions, it reflects broader global urbanization trends. Understanding these trends can shed light on shared challenges and potential solutions applicable in various urban contexts. Examining the impact of gentrification within the context of cost of living disparities highlights the need for comprehensive and inclusive urban development strategies. Striking a balance between economic growth, affordability, and social equity requires thoughtful policies that address the diverse needs of urban communities.
C. Educational attainment, earnings and education. Higher levels of education often correlate with higher incomes. However, disparities in educational opportunities, including access to quality schools and resources, can perpetuate income inequality. D. Debatable example. Affirmative action policies aimed at promoting diversity in educational institutions are debated. Some argue that they help address historical inequalities, while others contend they may lead to reverse discrimination.
Earnings and education. 1. Correlation and causation. While there is a clear statistical correlation between higher levels of education and higher incomes, understanding the causal relationship is crucial. How much of the income disparity is directly attributable to education? And to what extent are other factors, such as systemic biases, at play? 2. Disparities in educational opportunities. Disparities in educational opportunities, including access to quality schools, resources, and extracurricular activities, contribute to variations in educational outcomes. How can societies address these disparities to ensure that the correlation between education and income is not solely determined by socioeconomic background? 3. Skill mismatch. Beyond formal education, the evolving job market demands specific skills. How can education systems adapt to provide not just degrees but also relevant skills, ensuring that individuals are equipped for the demands of a rapidly changing workforce?
Debatable example. Affirmative action policies. 4. Historical inequalities. Advocates for affirmative action argue that these policies are necessary to address historical inequalities and systemic barriers that have disadvantaged certain racial and ethnic groups. How can affirmative action effectively level the playing field and contribute to a more equitable distribution of educational opportunities? 5. Reverse discrimination concerns. Critics of affirmative action policies express concerns about reverse discrimination, suggesting that these policies may disadvantage certain individuals based on their race or ethnicity. How can policies be crafted to address historical injustices without perpetuating new forms of discrimination? 6. Measuring effectiveness. The debate often revolves around the effectiveness of affirmative action. What metrics should be used to evaluate the success of these policies in promoting diversity and addressing historical inequalities? How can the impact be measured beyond short-term outcomes? 7. Holistic admissions. Many affirmative action policies focus on holistic admissions processes, considering factors beyond academic achievement. How can educational institutions strike a balance between holistic evaluations and merit-based admissions to ensure a fair and inclusive selection process? 8. Alternatives to affirmative action. Within the debate, discussions about alternative approaches emerge. What other strategies can be employed to promote diversity and inclusivity in educational institutions without relying on race-conscious admissions policies? 9. Broader socio-economic considerations. The debate extends beyond race to broader socio-economic considerations. How can policies address economic disparities, recognizing that socio-economic background often intersects with race, and create comprehensive solutions for a more inclusive educational landscape? 10. Global perspectives. Affirmative action debates are not unique to a particular country. How do different countries approach affirmative action, and what lessons can be learned from global experiences in promoting diversity and addressing historical inequalities in education? Navigating the complexities of the relationship between education, income, and diversity in educational institutions involves addressing systemic challenges and crafting policies that promote both equal opportunities and inclusivity. These questions prompt a deeper examination of the trade-offs and considerations within the ongoing debates surrounding educational attainment and affirmative action policies.
D. Social mobility challenges. Access to opportunities. While the US has a narrative of social mobility, studies suggest that not everyone has equal access to opportunities. Factors like family background, race, and neighborhood can influence an individual's ability to move up the economic ladder. D. Debatable example. The role of inheritance in perpetuating wealth disparities is debated. Critics argue that it entrenches inequality, while proponents assert the right to pass on wealth to future generations.
Social mobility challenges. 1. Invisible barriers. The narrative of social mobility often assumes a level playing field, but studies suggest that invisible barriers exist. How do systemic factors, such as implicit biases, impact access to opportunities and create disparities that hinder social mobility? 2. Interplay of factors. Access to opportunities is influenced by a complex interplay of factors, including family background, race, gender, and neighborhood conditions. How do these factors intersect to create unique challenges for individuals seeking upward economic mobility? 3. Educational disparities. Educational opportunities significantly contribute to social mobility. How can societies address educational disparities to ensure that all children, regardless of socioeconomic background, have equal access to quality education and the potential for upward mobility?
Debatable example. The role of inheritance. 4. Critics' perspective. Critics argue that the role of inheritance in perpetuating wealth disparities reinforces existing inequalities. They contend that the ability to pass on significant wealth to future generations creates a cycle of advantage, where a select few continue to benefit, widening the gap between the affluent and the rest of society. 5. Generational inequity. Critics highlight concerns about generational inequity, emphasizing that the concentration of wealth within certain families can limit economic opportunities for others. How can societies balance the right to private property and inheritance with the goal of fostering a more equitable distribution of resources? 6. Impact on social mobility. The debate often centers on the impact of inherited wealth on social mobility. To what extent does the ability to inherit substantial assets affect an individual's motivation, access to opportunities, and willingness to take risks in pursuit of economic success? 7. Proponents' perspective. Proponents of the right to pass on wealth argue that individuals have the autonomy to determine the distribution of their assets. They contend that inheritance is a fundamental aspect of personal freedom, and that limiting this right could have unintended consequences, such as discouraging entrepreneurship and innovation. 8. Encouraging philanthropy. Some proponents argue that wealthy families often contribute to philanthropy, which can have positive societal impacts. How can inheritance practices be aligned with broader societal goals, encouraging philanthropy and community development while addressing concerns about wealth concentration? 9. Policy interventions. Within the debate, discussions about potential policy interventions arise. What role should governments play in regulating inheritance to balance individual rights with the societal goal of reducing wealth disparities? Can policies incentivize responsible wealth distribution without impeding economic freedom? 10. Global perspectives. The debate over inheritance is not confined to a specific country. How do different countries approach the regulation of inheritance, and what lessons can be learned from global experiences in addressing wealth concentration and promoting social mobility? The debate surrounding inheritance and its impact on wealth disparities touches on fundamental principles of economic justice, individual freedom, and societal well-being. Addressing these issues requires thoughtful considerations of policy interventions and societal values to create a balance between individual rights and the collective goal of fostering a more equitable society.
E. Rising costs of essential services. Healthcare and education. The increasing costs of healthcare and education constrain household budgets, limiting the ability of individuals to save or invest for the future. D. Debatable example. The debate over universal health care revolves around the balance between ensuring access to essential services and concerns about the potential financial burden on taxpayers.
Rising costs of essential services. 1. Healthcare affordability crisis. The escalating costs of healthcare services can lead to a crisis in affordability for individuals and families. How do rising healthcare costs impact people's access to essential medical services, preventive care, and the overall well-being of the population? 2. Educational cost challenges. The increasing costs of education, including tuition fees, textbooks, and other related expenses, present challenges for individuals seeking higher education. How does the rising cost of education influence decisions about pursuing advanced degrees and the accessibility of education for diverse socio-economic backgrounds? 3. Household budget constraints. The strain on household budgets resulting from high healthcare and education costs can limit discretionary spending and hinder the ability of individuals to save or invest for the future. How does this economic pressure contribute to financial stress and impact long-term financial planning?
Debatable example. The debate over universal health care. 4. Access versus financial burden. The debate over universal health care revolves around finding the right balance between ensuring access to essential services for all citizens and addressing concerns about the potential financial burden on taxpayers. How can universal health care be structured to guarantee access while minimizing the economic impact on individuals and governments? 5. Public versus private systems. Different countries have varied approaches to healthcare systems, ranging from entirely public to predominantly private. How do these different models impact the quality of healthcare, access to services, and the financial sustainability of the healthcare system? 6. Preventive versus reactive measures. The debate extends to whether universal health care should prioritize preventive measures, such as public health initiatives and early intervention, or focus more on reactive measures, addressing health issues as they arise. How can a healthcare system strike a balance that ensures both long-term health outcomes and financial sustainability? 7. Economic impact. Critics of universal healthcare often express concerns about the economic impact, including potential tax increases and government expenditure. Proponents argue that the economic benefits, such as a healthier and more productive workforce, outweigh the initial costs. How can societies assess and address the economic implications of transitioning to a universal healthcare model? 8. Role of innovation. The debate considers the role of innovation in healthcare. How can universal healthcare systems foster innovation in medical research and technology while ensuring equitable access to cutting-edge treatments for all citizens? 9. Global perspectives. Universal healthcare is implemented differently across the globe. Exploring international experiences provides insights into the advantages and challenges of various models. How do different countries balance the objectives of universal access, quality of care, and financial sustainability? 10. Social contract. The debate touches on the social contract between citizens and the government. What responsibilities does the government have in providing essential services, and how do individuals perceive their role in supporting these services through taxes and contributions? The ongoing debate over universal health care highlights the complex interplay between healthcare access, financial sustainability, and societal values. Addressing these challenges requires a nuanced understanding of the economic, social, and ethical considerations involved in ensuring access to essential services for all citizens.
F. Debt levels. Student loans and credit card debt. High levels of student loan debt and credit card debt can hinder financial freedom. Balancing the need for education with the burden of debt is a challenge for many. Debatable example. The debate over forgiving student loan debt involves considerations of fairness, economic stimulus, and the potential moral hazard of rewarding those who took on significant debt.
Debt levels. 1. Student loan burden. The increasing cost of higher education has resulted in a significant burden of student loan debt for many individuals. How does the weight of student loan debt impact the financial decisions, career choices, and overall well-being of graduates as they enter the workforce? 2. Credit card debt challenges. Credit card debt, often associated with consumer spending and unforeseen financial challenges, can accumulate rapidly. How does credit card debt affect individuals' financial stability, and what role does it play in shaping spending habits and financial planning? 3. Financial freedom constraints. High levels of student loan and credit card debt can limit financial freedom, affecting individuals' ability to make major life decisions such as buying a home, starting a family, or pursuing entrepreneurial ventures. How does debt influence the broader economic landscape and individuals' contributions to it?
Debatable example. The debate over forgiving student loan debt. 4. Considerations of fairness. The debate over forgiving student loan debt involves considerations of fairness. Critics argue that forgiving debt may not be fair to those who diligently paid off their loans or chose not to take on significant debt. How can forgiveness policies address concerns of fairness and equity among different groups of borrowers? 5. Economic stimulus. Proponents of student loan debt forgiveness often argue that it could serve as an economic stimulus by providing relief to individuals burdened by debt, potentially boosting consumer spending and contributing to economic growth. How can debt forgiveness be strategically implemented to achieve both short-term economic benefits and long-term financial stability? 6. Moral hazard concerns. Critics express concerns about moral hazard, suggesting that forgiving student loan debt may encourage irresponsible borrowing in the future. How can policies balance the need for debt relief with measures that discourage excessive borrowing and promote responsible financial decision-making? 7. Impact on social mobility. The debate extends to the impact of student loan debt on social mobility. How does the burden of student loans affect individuals from lower-income backgrounds, and can debt forgiveness contribute to a more level playing field in terms of access to education and economic opportunities? 8. Alternatives to forgiveness. Within the debate, discussions about alternatives to blanket forgiveness emerge. What other strategies, such as income-based repayment plans or targeted relief for specific groups, could address the challenges of student loan debt without creating potential moral hazard issues? 9. Long-term economic consequences. The debate also considers the long-term economic consequences of forgiving student loan debt. How might it impact the overall stability of financial institutions, lending practices, and the cost of higher education in the future? 10. Global perspectives. The issue of student loan debt forgiveness is not unique to a particular country. How do different countries approach student loan policies, and what lessons can be learned from global experiences in addressing the challenges associated with student debt? The ongoing debate over forgiving student loan debt brings to light the complexities of balancing individual financial relief, economic stimulus, and considerations of fairness and responsibility. Addressing these challenges requires a comprehensive understanding of the socio-economic factors at play and thoughtful policymaking to navigate the intricate dynamics of debt and its impact on individuals and society as a whole.
G. Social safety nets. Welfare programs. The extent of social safety nets, such as unemployment benefits and welfare programs, varies. Some argue for more robust social support, while others emphasize individual responsibility. Debatable example. The debate over the minimum wage explores the balance between providing a living wage for workers and potential impacts on business competitiveness and job availability.
Social safety nets. 1. Variability in social support. The extent and effectiveness of social safety nets, including unemployment benefits and welfare programs, vary widely across different countries and regions. How does the availability of social support influence individuals' resilience during economic challenges and contribute to societal well-being? 2. Individual versus collective responsibility. The debate over social safety nets often involves a fundamental question about the balance between individual responsibility and collective support. How can societies strike a balance that ensures a basic standard of living for all citizens while promoting individual agency and self-sufficiency?
Social safety nets. 1. Variability in social support. The extent and effectiveness of social safety nets, including unemployment benefits and welfare programs, vary widely across different countries and regions. How does the availability of social support influence individuals' resilience during economic challenges and contribute to societal well-being? 2. Individual versus collective responsibility. The debate over social safety nets often involves a fundamental question about the balance between individual responsibility and collective support. How can societies strike a balance that ensures a basic standard of living for all citizens while promoting individual agency and self-sufficiency? Debatable example. The debate over the minimum wage. 3. Living wage for workers. Advocates for an increased minimum wage argue that it is essential for providing a living wage for workers. How does the minimum wage contribute to addressing income inequality and ensuring that individuals working full-time can meet their basic needs? 4. Business competitiveness and job availability. Critics of raising the minimum wage express concerns about its potential impact on business competitiveness and job availability. How can policies be crafted to ensure fair compensation for workers without unduly burdening businesses, especially small enterprises? 5. Regional and sectoral considerations. The debate extends to considerations of regional and sectoral differences. How can minimum wage policies be tailored to account for variations in the cost of living and economic conditions across different regions and industries? 6. Effects on small businesses. Small businesses often face unique challenges in adjusting to increases in the minimum wage. How can policies support small enterprises while still addressing the goal of providing fair compensation for workers? 7. Unintended consequences. The debate includes discussions about potential unintended consequences, such as automation and job loss, resulting from significant increases in the minimum wage. How can policies anticipate and mitigate these consequences to ensure a smooth transition? 8. Economic equity. The minimum wage debate is closely tied to broader discussions about economic equity. How does the minimum wage contribute to or alleviate existing economic inequities, and what policies can address these disparities? 9. Impact on social safety nets. Considerations of the minimum wage also intersect with discussions about the overall structure of social safety nets. How might changes in the minimum wage impact reliance on welfare programs and unemployment benefits? 10. Global perspectives. The minimum wage debate is not confined to a single country. Navigating the complexities of social safety nets and minimum wage policies involves considering a range of economic, social, and ethical factors. Addressing these challenges requires nuanced policymaking that promotes economic equity, supports businesses, and ensures a basic standard of living for all citizens. These factors highlight the complex and multifaceted nature of the challenges facing individuals within the context of America's overall wealth. Debates surrounding these issues often involve discussions on policy reforms, social justice, and the balance between individual success and collective well-being. In conclusion, these 7 critical topics, from income inequality and educational attainment to rising costs of essential services and social safety nets, touch on the very fabric of our societal well-being. We've explored thought-provoking questions, debatable examples, and complex dynamics that shape our economies, influence policies, and impact individuals. Now, we invite you to share your perspectives, insights, and experiences. Your comments can contribute to a richer understanding of these issues, fostering a diverse and inclusive dialogue. Whether you agree or disagree, or if you have unique insights to offer, your voice matters. Let's engage in a meaningful conversation about the challenges and opportunities presented by these topics. Share your thoughts on income inequality, educational attainment, rising costs, social mobility, debt levels, social safety nets, and the minimum wage. How do these issues resonate with your experiences, and what solutions or alternative viewpoints do you envision? Your comments have the power to inspire, challenge, and shape the discourse on these critical societal issues. Join us in fostering an environment where diverse perspectives come together to drive thoughtful conversations and ultimately contribute to a more informed and empathetic society. Share your thoughts below.